Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast with KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and Najee Moye.
Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone off-season edition. I'm Niko Tamurian. Najee joins me. And, not for being the off-season, for the Seahawks not playing a game in about, 3+ weeks now, there's actually a good amount of stuff to talk about with this team and around the league, of course.
There's a good amount of things to talk about. We wish we were talking about the Seahawks playing.
I wish I was in New Orleans talking to you right now.
Insert team here, yeah. No. As someone who's been to New Orleans many times, not for a Super Bowl, but it's a great place for
Right. I got to go for the Sugar Bowl. And
yeah,
that was really cool.
Did.
Yeah, I really best shrimp and grits.
I love New Orleans. It's one of my favorite cities in the country. And it's had a crazy year so far, but that city is as resilient as ever. Yeah. And they're going to be treated to a good game. Not as good as it would be if the Seahawks were but, if the Super Bowls happen in cycles, maybe the Seahawks end up back in.
So let's start with that since we're on this subject. I mean, we have a lot to talk about with the Hawks, what they can do this offseason to potentially take a step closer, what we feel about the new offensive coordinator, Klint Kubiak. And that's kind of the idea of this show, that we love being able to use our inside access. We're in the season anyway at the Virginia Mason Athletic Center all the time. Najee and I are often in the press box at Seahawks games. And so we like to use that experience and what we hear and see and present to you informed opinions about whatever that topic is with the Hawks, whether it's a matchup during the season or right now, the offseason. So I can't wait to bring you that. But we were talking about New Orleans, the setting for the Super Bowl, all sorts of things. We've got the Chiefs and Eagles again. It's one of those things, and it's not like – I'm sure a lot of people watching this are like, oh, yeah, I think that too, or my coworker thinks that, whatever. It's like, it's kind of the issue. Do you want the Chiefs rather to make history and get that three-peat, or do you want are you sick of the Chiefs and you want to see somebody else get it? Are you sick of the Chiefs getting the calls? Like, there was another one, that 4th and 1 with the Bills.
Yeah.
So let me ask you first, where do you stand on this?
Here's the thing. I am known to everyone who knows me as a hater first and foremost. And I'm also a Giants fan. And as you know, we can talk. There's a whole episode of a podcast that I won't do about what Giants fans, how they feel about the Eagles, even before the Saquon Barkley situation, even before Hard Knocks. It's all not great. Long story short, I'm rooting for a three-peat because as a long-standing hater of dynasty teams, the Patriots, the Warriors, and basketball, you get tired of it. You get tired of just seeing it over and over again. It's like what the people like to see parity. I think that's why some people like that the college football so much. And we're kind of seeing it in college football at least a little bit, but a three-peat. Tom Brady's never done it. Dan Marino's never done it.
Dan Marino didn't win any.
Yeah, exactly. And John Montana's never done it. We're talking about. We just have to sit back and just watch and just see. When I watched Kansas City play Buffalo yesterday, it was that 4th and 1 call. What actually happened? Did Josh actually? Be that as it may, the Bills had a chance at the end. And Steve Spagnuolo, Giants legend,
nice.
Had to mention that, dialed up a blitz that for whatever reason, Buffalo was just ill-equipped to deal with.
And they still almost got the playoff.
And they still got
Kincaid just, he's been getting flack for not catching it. I mean, it's in his hands. He probably should have.
Mark Andrews.
But that was a really difficult. It wasn't like the Mark Andrews play. That's one an NFL tight end
mistake. He's holding it. It's just like Josh threw up a prayer. The only thing you can do. He was the closest guy to the ball, but what a blitz can change things, and we've seen that. Time and time again in the NFL, the coaching staff for Kansas City is all time. Patrick Mahomes, I hate to say, he's all time. Andy Reid, former Eagle, also all time.
That's cool. Yeah, we saw this a couple years ago, right?
We saw this a couple years ago. So I don't know. I guess there's an argument to be made for both, but because of just saving the embarrassment to all Giants fans all across the nation,
I'm gonna
root for the Chiefs.
Well, here's the thing: is
I hate to say that.
When it's in this moment, I'm like, all right. I've had enough of the Chiefs. I really like Philly's team. I like that they got Saquon and instantly just came right back to the Super Bowl. I thought that was a sorry to your Giants, but I just thought it was really – I like the way the Eagles operate from a standpoint. They're there contending, but they weren't resting. They were bringing in, obviously Saquon, and they were tweaking the running back position before that. So in that standpoint, ending the Chiefs' reign of terror, so to speak, and getting a new team in there, I'm all for that. But I keep going.
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and I love Jalen Hurts. Yeah, and I keep going back though to something when I was younger, when I was a kid growing up in the '90s, and I just wanted anybody to beat the Bulls. And I love the Sonics, even it was just the uniforms and everything else. But I even wanted the Utah Jazz to beat the Bulls in those back-to-back 97, 98 finals. And now that I'm an adult and I look back, I'm like, wow, how great were those Bull dynasties?
Exactly.
And I loved watching the greatness of Michael Jordan. And am I putting Mahomes on the MJ level? No, but maybe he could be one day in football if he has more championships to win. And so it's like in this moment, I want the Eagles. But I also remind myself, like, well, you were in the same boat when it came to the Bulls in the NBA. And I wanted somebody to beat it. But ironically, you were talking about the Warriors dynasty a minute ago. Like, heck, I rooted for the Cleveland and LeBron every time in those finals. And I was rooting for the Raptors when they finally got them, too. And like,
exactly.
So it's in the moment, I think so many people want that dynasty to be over. They want a new champion. They want something else to root for. They're sick of hearing about the same team. But then I think you look back at the era that you lived through and you grew up watching or whatever, and you're like, oh, darn, that was kind of special, wasn't it?
Yeah, and to your point, I'll say even looking back at Tom Brady's Patriots teams, I know they won a lot of championships, but I mean, it was kind of fun in an odd way because I mean they were the boring team.
Yeah.
You know.
Looking back at it, like I definitely rooted against the Patriots every one. And after the fact, I certainly respect Brady even more. I mean, certainly went on to beat the Bucks and all, or win with the Bucks, I should say, and that cemented everything that it wasn't already cemented,
but,
right?
But we look back in a nostalgic way. We just think about Tom Brady and Edelman and Mike Vrabel and Randy Moss, well, the attempted Randy Moss.
Yeah.
It's just like I understand why, and above all else, I want to see a competitive and good football.
So what's going to happen?
I think the Chiefs will win.
Okay.
But I don't think it'll be easy, and I don't think it'll be close. I think it will be close.
I think the Eagles will win. Because anytime there's like history on the line, you know me well enough on this show, I don't necessarily go with the X's and O's when I make predictions. Mm-hmm. As educational as that sort of breakdown is and fun to listen to and all that stuff, and we can do that. When it comes to predicting the results of a game, I look at just trends and things like that. And I feel like a lot of times when we've had history on the table, that gets denied. I mean, we keep bringing up your Giants, but like when the Patriots were about to be undefeated, here come the Giants winning in that Super Bowl. And there's been other games of that magnitude where when the history was on the line, it got spoiled by somebody.
Right.
Right. And so, the Packers going for back-to-back in the 90s. Here comes John Elway winning his first, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go with the Eagles, but I think it's going to be a really close game, like 21-20, last-second kick, something of that nature.
I'll give you a slice of analysis. If the Eagles win the game, it will and the reason why I don't want them to win the game is because if they win the game, it will be because of Saquon Barkley.
Sure.
And
great. Kudos to their front office.
Kudos to their front office for picking up the misgivings of the Giants front office. Like we all saw
that clip from that Hard Knocks will never die, especially if the Eagles win the Super Bowl.
John Mara has not slept.
No.
Just like Gino hasn't wrote back, John Mara has not slept, and I haven't slept either.
Well, there you go.
And
So I'm going Eagles. You're going Chiefs?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Chiefs.
But I don't feel like I was going to say, can we have like a friendly wager? But I don't really feel confident enough in my pick in that way.
I feel semi-confident about the Chiefs because of their defense.
Yeah.
I think their defensive line is a great defensive line. They gave up a lot of yards on the ground to Buffalo last week, but I think their defense line is great. And I think they'll figure out whatever they did wrong, and then they'll plug up the middle or the outsides, and Chris Jones versus the tush push. Is the question. I think that one little play that looks like a rugby scrum over anything else is definitely just going to put whoever can come out on top in that matchup.
Yeah,
will probably.
So there you go.
I think it'll be Chris Jones because I have a lot of faith in Chris Jones.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. Yeah. I like that we get a rematch too. Like the Eagles can get another shot, and that'll be fun. Yeah. I know it's more fun sometimes we see other teams. I would have preferred to see the Lions win because I think they've been really one of the best teams.
But obviously they lost. They don't deserve it.
Yeah, they're almost becoming the Bills at this point. The Bills are so good in the last 5 years, give or take, and they just can't seem to get there.
Can't catch a break. I think about the Four Falls of Buffalo, and then
I grew up in that. That was terrible. Yeah,
exactly what we're talking about. So then Detroit, they're still kind of getting things going. They're losing a lot of coordinators.
So you have to see how they adjust to that. Yeah.
Speaking of coordinators.
Yeah, great segue.
The Seahawks have their new offensive coordinator, and we have thoughts, Niko.
Yeah, so why don't you go first, because you're a little more passionate about this than I am.
I don't know.
Klint
Kubiak. And, we say all this because if we look at the sample size, we can't predict the future as much as I would like to be able to predict the future. Believe me, I would. The Saints' offense was not exactly the type of offense that's like gangbusters last year.
Sure.
He's not Ben Johnson.
No.
He's not even the offensive line coach or the run game, or the offensive line coach that the Seahawks were thinking about. Yeah, from Detroit. I think this. I look, when I think about the New Orleans Saints, I think about you not finish last in the division, and a winnable division, mind you. I mean, Tampa did win it, but it's like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
They won 5 games. The Hawks won more than 5, to say the least. And his last name is synonymous in the NFL.
Yeah.
I will refrain from all judgment currently, but there's a lot that's going to have to happen because this Seahawks offense is one that we saw that kind of had great moments, but not as many great moments as we would like to last year, and more what's going on type moments.
Yeah.
I just hope for the best.
Yeah. Here's my take on that, and I think everything you said is legit. Obviously, it's fair. It's what I would say is Mike Macdonald is so damn cerebral, and he's got such a vision that he must see something in Klint Kubiak that says, "Okay, this is our guy. This is a guy that will thrive here." And to that point, the reason they parted ways with Ryan Grubb because Ryan Grubb's offense wasn't bad.
No.
Geno Smith led the league, we've said millions of times on the show, at one point in the season in passing yards, despite what was arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL. And yet he's still... So Ryan Grubb is the one signing free agent linemen and all that stuff. So the issue, though, the reason he was let go is because it didn't quite align with Mike Macdonald's vision, as we've talked about in this show. And, that kind of offense, you go 3 and out, your defense is right back on the field. And it just gets worn down and that sort of thing. And there's other parts of it too. But this was a philosophy thing. It wasn't entirely. It was definitely partially, but not entirely results-based. So my thinking, going back to Klint Kubiak, and reiterating that everything you said is spot on, I look at it, Mike Macdonald's probably thinking, we have a better team than New Orleans, quite honestly.
Right.
That's what he's saying from their standpoint.
And that is true.
He's got Geno, he's got DK Metcalf, and he's got Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's got Kenneth Walker III, and he's got and now the offense he inherits that same offensive line that Grubb's offense has struggled with. And so maybe the hope is that we know John Schneider certainly doesn't want to spend too much money in free agency on a guard per se, but the draft's coming up. You're picking 18th. That's a great spot to plug in a draft and plug in a starter into the interior of that offensive line.
What we saw in New Orleans, though, also they really didn't have a steady quarterback situation.
Well, that's just it.
And so, I mean, this is great for Klint Kubiak because he is
right. I think he'll do. That's the point. I think he's going to do better.
He's doing better. The situation is optically, it doesn't look great. And we talked about this last week on the last episode of the podcast. If you're listening, thank you. But we talked about the future of Geno Smith, and we're talking about it depends a lot on who they get as offensive coordinator. There's a lot of work to be done, especially on the offensive line, to figure out how to maybe scale back some of that passing so he limit some of those interceptions. I mean, I said it was like we can't really live with,
Yeah, that was the knock on Geno this year, and it was uncharacteristic because he's usually pretty decisive, accurate.
Yeah.
And maybe that is the volume, right? And sometimes the volume of those passes were based on the Hawks trying to come back from a deficit and that sort of thing. But, yeah, I think, when you're throwing the ball 50 times as opposed to 30, there's 20 more opportunities to throw a pick.
Exactly.
So...
I mean, it remains to be seen, but, I mean, it's not... I know that Kellen Moore is probably going to get a lot of nods, and he's currently getting nods for maybe first of all, the Saints are the only team in the NFL that don't currently have a head coach.
Yeah.
It says a lot about the organization.
Yeah.
As it is right now. A lot of the sports media nationally is knocking Jerry Jones for making Brian Schottenheimer their head coach. New Orleans is probably going to get nods a lot more because of just what the situation at hand there. I hope for the best. I think Seahawks fans hope for the best because it's the offseason, and I know, and everyone knows that there's room for that team to grow. They were last in their division.
Yeah. I mean, I think listen, the ultimate verdict on this, I guess, we'll be talking about a year from now.
Remains to be seen.
For sure. But you're right to have pause, and I just think it's a better situation. And so Mike is seeing through the numbers and the 5 wins and all that sort of thing. And he's saying, well, how would this offense have been with our guys? And I think that's kind of what he's looking at. I mean, and does that mean, bam, there's it. Hey, we're good.
Do you think that Mike Macdonald will have he is the head coach, but he has a defensive background. Do you think he'll kind of I don't want to say I don't see him calling plays or anything.
No, and he addressed this the day after they let Grubb go in his season-ending press conference, and he said that he is the head coach. He's ultimately responsible for everything, and it was just a philosophy thing with Grubb. He's gonna listen. Yeah, he is the head coach. He's still gonna call plays on defense, of course. Right. But I believe one of the questions, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here because it was 3 weeks ago, was more along the lines of, does that person, whoever the offensive coordinator, now Klint Kubiak, does that person get like free reign? Like they're in their offensive silo, you're in your defensive silo. And he's like, no, like I'm overseeing everything. Like I'm not calling plays and stuff, but we saw that. We even saw you could read Mike's lips a couple times during the season. Like, why are we doing that there?
Why are we doing this?
Yeah. And so I don't think that's going to change.
Mike McDonald's a funny guy because you can just see him in press conferences, just kind of like, you can tell that behind the skin, he's boiling sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Some of those post-game press conferences, yeah. And but I still have faith he'll do a really good thing for this franchise moving forward. 10 wins in the first year.
Can't help
it's an improvement, a 1-win improvement from our buddy Pete Carroll, who's now with the Raiders.
Shout out to Pete.
Yeah, not on the actual regular season schedule this year, but the Raiders and Seahawks do often play in the preseason, and I think almost like the NFL is going to try to do that now.
I mean, there's no way they couldn't. And honestly, just if you look at Pete Carroll, I mean, just if you look at him face, I always say that he kind of fits in everywhere. I've heard stories about him jogging around Green Lake, and you're like,
he's awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome. He fits in very much in Seattle. And if you saw him at the press conference in Las Vegas, he looks like just a guy. He looks like a Raiders guy.
Yeah.
Silver hair. Now, you'll never know how much the job stresses him already because the hair's already gray. How do you think he's going to do?
I think he'll do great. I think his removal from the Seahawks job wasn't a Pete can't coach anymore thing. It was they just needed, like, the thing had grown stale maybe a little bit.
Sure.
By Seahawks standards.
Right.
9-8, 7-10 the last 3 years he was there. But I think it doesn't mean anything about his coaching. I think he's a great coach. I love his energy. I think he's perfect for Vegas. I think of all the openings, I'm like, Pete in Vegas would be amazing.
If they're giving him like the keys to everything because it's a kind of a franchise.
Well, it's a new GM too.
It's a new GM too.
Yeah.
I mean, like they need from top to bottom. They've got only a couple of decent. Max Crosby's the first player that comes to mind. They need a quarterback. They need a lot of things. So I think Pete he is the oldest head coach in the league, which is not the newest thing for Pete Carroll. But he's probably. I mean, he's spry. He's
I think he'll do great.
Yeah, shout out to Marshawn Lynch also for crashing the press conference.
He crashed that, and he crashed Mike McDonald's first game as head coach. The guy's everywhere, and we're here for it.
I love whenever former players or anyone really just dedicates their life to just doing side quests. Yeah, just like Raiders. Yeah. Marshawn Lynch is Seahawks from forever, but I mean, still.
Yeah.
It's cool that he showed some Pete Carroll some love.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah. I think Pete will do really well. I think that, boy, oh boy, it's impossible to look ahead at the new season until you see the free agents. But I think the Seahawks, this offseason, we actually asked on social media, which offseason, and we keep this to Seahawks here, of course, but which offseason is more impactful, the Seahawks or the Mariners, as far as what they do or don't do. And it was a closer vote than I thought. It was like 57-42, give or take, in favor of the Mariners, because certainly the Mariners are really at that point where they, had that playoff run and they missed the last 2 years by one game. And there's already some fans growing, understandably, in every way, impatient by that dynamic and not getting some of the big names. But you look at the Seahawks offseason, if they nail this offseason, and by that I mean finally shore up that offensive line, do the right things, you're talking about improving upon a team that was a 10-win team. And to be quite honest with you, very easily could have been a 12-win team. You're talking about the Giants debacle. If they don't get a field goal block and they make it, then you go to overtime with the Giants. I'm betting on the Seahawks in that. You score against the Vikings late. You give that one away in the last minute or two.
But we talk about the Seahawks and Mariners. It's like taking your team from good. I mean, the Mariners have always been. They made playoffs for years. They've always been kind of treading best rotation in football, honestly. But they've been always treading just like okay enough. They need to go from good to great, just like the Seahawks.
Yeah.
And win. I mean, the Seahawks lost some winnable games, but they also lost to some great teams.
Right, and that's the thing. I guess the point I'm trying to make is the Mariners are on the cusp of having to blow things up as far as front office and that sort of thing. And I think Jerry and Justin over there do a really nice job. This isn't an indictment on them. I think they do a really good job with the resources that they have. And that was
a good way to couch that.
That's the way that's the best way you can say that. The Seahawks, however,
I was going to say they've done a really good job with doing next to nothing.
Well, listen, they're not going to go out and sign Shohei Ohtani and Soto,
Sure,
right?
Sure.
But the Seahawks are coming at us from a different angle, right? This offseason, they're coming off, a lot of other seasons, 10-7 gets you in the playoffs. I mean, it's just the way the NFC was, and the NFC is loaded right now.
Mm-hmm.
You have an opportunity of taking this team from pretty good playoff caliber to being a real bona fide Super Bowl contender if you shore up that line and you do the things you need to do. Because you look at the other pieces in this team, a lot of young that are only going to get better players all over the place on that defense. I mean, you're talking about Ernest Jones, a full season of that guy. Linebackers, sign me up if they can get that done. If they win the offseason.
Well, they have to win the offseason and then also win the offseason versus other teams in the division. I mean, I don't see the Niners having another down year.
No, that feels like an outlier.
And then also the Rams are also getting better. You saw how they performed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They took it to the Eagles.
They were Jed Fish's Super Bowl pick when I talked to him 2 weeks ago.
Hey, and Jed Fish knows ball.
He does.
Yeah. So I mean,
and likes long summer nights. Apparently, there's part of that conversation. I love that.
And then and the Cardinals are going to try to get better. So it's just like, what's the Seahawks doing?
Yeah, and that's it. I think priority one.
Klint Kubiak isn't exactly a shining.
But he could be.
He could be.
I like when we disagree.
As it stands. Look, in a situation where it's like, okay, you're kind of hedging how the offense will do in combination with you have a quarterback that's kind of like coming up on some money maybe.
Yeah.
And you're also trying to make the playoffs for the first time in a couple of years. So it's like, this is the guy that's leading the offense?
Yeah.
Prove me wrong.
Right.
I would love to be wrong. I love being wrong. But
yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's not, But as far as what was available, I think.
Right, sure.
This is a move.
It's a wait and see. So you did that. The rest of the offseason, I think priority 1 and 1A has to be Ernest Jones and then the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And if those get shored up, or at least in the case of the offensive line, vastly improved, excuse me, you're talking about something that could be pretty darn special, if not next year, the year after, and moving forward. So this is a really big offseason. So I can't wait to see what they start doing. Obviously, free agency opens up with the new league year in March. And let's see what happens from there, because then you get to the draft in April, and then you start to get the more vision of what. Yes, we'll do a lot of mocks in that one. And now you start to get a better picture of what this Seahawks team could be.
Well, picture's worth 1,000 words.
Well, hopefully it's worth a Super Bowl ring one of these days.
Hopefully, at least NFC West Championship.
Yeah. This was a fun little off-season chat.
This was good. I like our little talks. I like when we get to bring this these commentaries to you guys.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We love bringing it to you. We're going to keep this rolling. This is a great place to talk Seahawks from the standpoint of, we're at the VMAC, we're at the games at Lumen Field, and we love talking to these guys and base our conversations on that. So we have a lot of fun with that. And Najee, it's only a good day when you're here in the sports office, the KOMO Sports Zone studio.
Hey, I love being here.
Let's do it. Yeah. So, hey, we'll come back in the near future. We're not really taking breaks. We're just kind of taking events as they come.
Right.
And we're going to roll with it from there. Naj, how's that sound?
Sounds great.
So, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. However you are consuming the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast, we appreciate you all during the season, and we can't wait to bring you even more exciting content during this off season. Have a good one.
Bye.